I'm so delighted to be joining you here in person today on the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. And I am going to be efficient because as you just heard, I have a flight to get back to a family dinner, back home tonight, and I don't want to miss that. I studied history, and I think a lot about the stories that we tell. And I think a lot about how those stories, and David Suzuki, hard act to follow, by the way, but the stories that we tell that lead us the wrong way, that tell us the things that we should be caring about, that aren't the real things. So I'm going to tell you a little story. In 2016, when I was trying to decide whether to run to be MLA, we drove to the Peace River Valley because I wanted to see that valley and I wanted to see the implication of Site C myself. And it was during that trip that I really did decide, okay, I'm going to run to be an MLA. We have a lot to protect in this province. But on that trip, everywhere we went, and I have photographs of it, were stands of dead forests. The pine beetle, largely the cause of this, but also ongoing droughts. And then, as we know, 2017, 2018, 2019, wildfires across BC. We were blanketed in smoke. We saw fires on an unprecedented level until this year. And I got home in August of 2019 with my family, and we'd had to drive. We were coming back south through the middle of the province, and we had to turn back, go north, go through Valemount to get back to Vancouver because the fires were so big. And it was the first time that I was in a car watching a rearview mirror as the fire was approaching us and wondering, were we going to be okay? And I got home and I thought about another thing that I've observed my whole life, which is in emergencies, and we see it over and over and over again. In emergencies, we see the best in people. Everybody wants to help. My mom and I went to Come From Away a couple weeks ago. I cried from the moment it started till the moment it ended. And it is a story, of course, if you haven't seen it, please do. It is amazing, about a community in Newfoundland, in Gander, Newfoundland, that rose to save and help people on 9/11 when all the planes were diverted to Gander. And why do we love that story so much? Because it reminds us of who we are. It reminds us of our true essence, which is we are connected to each other. We're connected to the world around us. We are meant to help and take care of each other. And when we're in an emergency, we rise to that occasion over and over again. So I got home in August 2019 and I thought, how do we create those conditions in our day-to-day lives? Okay, we take emergency preparedness and we combine it with creating social cohesion, connection in our neighborhoods, in our communities, and in our regions. And I made a chart. I always make charts. And now, 4 years later, there are organizations around BC, across the country, that are doing exactly this work. Resilient neighborhoods, High Neighbor in BC, in United Way is organizing that. Powell River, the Sunshine Coast, Salt Spring Island. There are these organically happening organizations where emergency preparedness isn't what we hear from government typically, which is pack your escape bags and try not to die. It is get to know your neighbors and become stronger and more resilient and more capable of weathering these storms. And then I thought, well, what's phase 2 of this? Phase 2 is when we begin to really know each other and we begin to map our assets, not just our physical, who has a generator, who has a wood stove, who has a plow, who has a tractor, all of these kinds of things. We start to map our human assets, who has skills, who can help us in times when we need connection. Who needs elder care? Who needs child care? Who's driving to town at the same time? Who can car share? And by building this resilience as a form of emergency preparedness, we actually address the thing that I think is causing our incapacity to truly act on climate change. We keep waiting for the top. We keep waiting for the ministers and the governments and everybody at the top to do the thing that we know they need to do. And they do it part way. And they tell us there's a climate plan. And they tell us that they've got policies. And they tell us that it's hard. But we know what's needed. And so instead of waiting for the top, as we build this connectivity and this resilience in our neighborhoods and our communities, we lead from the bottom. We lead from the ground. And we bring them to where they need to be because we know what that is. And that the antidote to all of the consumerism that is driving so much of climate change is actually connection. Because when we have connection, we're not hungry for all those other things. And so this is the work that I think is so critical right now. We are in these ongoing emergencies. We are going to see them as we're seeing this summer getting worse. On my way here, I made the mistake of looking at Twitter, and the graph of the ocean temperature in the Arctic and in the surface temperature, where it is off the chart, like literally the temperatures are off the charts right now. And then El Niño is coming. And this is a year that is going to test us. It's going to test our humanity. It's going to test our capacity to care for each other and to recognize what really matters, which is other people and our communities. But I believe, and if this is we are going to bring faith into this, my faith is in humanity. I believe in us. I believe that we have this in us. And I know that each of us can rise to that moment when we're faced with it, because I've seen it over and over and over again. And we have extraordinary leadership here in British Columbia and here in Canada, and that is Indigenous leadership. I sit next to it every day in the BC legislature with Adam Wilson. And every day I learn more and more from him. And we have the leadership of cultures and backgrounds and perspectives from all around the world. And you've brought that together today. And I think what we have to recognize is that we can't wait for the leaders to give us the perfect climate plan that is going to get us out of this. It's not enough. We are the solution. We are the answer. And it is connecting with the people around us that is the very first and essential step that we have to take in the moment that we're in. And thank you so much, Tariq and Yusuf, for doing this, because you are actually creating these conditions. And I'm so grateful that you keep bringing us back together and you keep reminding us of what really matters in a moment like this, each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sonia.